Oh, the weather outside is frightful, but the fire is so delightful. And since we've no place to go, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Man, it doesn't show signs of stopping.
I've got the perfect filling in mind. To start with, mix 225 grams of plain flour and the same again of wholemeal to add some texture. You know, there is this idea that baking bread is complicated, that it involves so many processes. And yet it is very different to everyday cooking, partly because you're weighing things, partly because there's a little bit of chemistry involved, and sometimes a wee bit of magic. But it's a question of getting in there and having a go. I know it doesn't always work. My first loaf ended up on the lawn for the birds. My father just chucked it out the window. But then it got better and better. Easier. Add a teaspoon of salt and sugar. And then here's the bit that makes this lazy. I'm using bicarbonate of soda instead of yeast to make my loaf rise, which means I don't have to leave it for hours before cooking it. Sort of ingredient that just sits there on the shelf. But watch the sell-by date. It's actually quite short on bicarbonate of soda. If it has passed the sell-by date, put it in a little dish in the fridge, and it'll make the fridge smell lovely and fresh. Every loaf needs some liquid, and the usual thing is warm water. But I like my loaves to have a little bit of flavour, something slightly sharp in the background. So I tend to use buttermilk, sometimes yoghurt. You need to use natural yoghurt here, without any flavourings or sugar. About 300 mils will do. Make sure it's live yoghurt, because that's what's going to help to make it work. A dribble of milk will make the yoghurt a bit more pourable. I simply pour that into the flours, the salt, the sugar and the bicarb. Then you just bring all the ingredients together. A bread dough should be quite soft. You should get the feeling that there's something happening inside. And that doesn't really make sense until you actually start to do it and you get your hands in there. And you'll feel there's kind of something going on. I always like to think I can feel its heart beating. Because I'm not using any yeast, I can stick my loaf straight in the oven. I've already preheated a pot just to help to create a crackling crust. Dust the pot with flour to stop the dough sticking. Popping in there, just to make it easier to break open. Just put a little cross on the top. Then this just pops in the oven for about half an hour, 25 minutes or so. While that's doing its thing, here's a quick recap. Don't forget you can download full details of all my recipes on the BBC website, bbc.co.uk/food. Dive into your loaf when it's fresh out of the oven if you can. This is when I usually dabble with an assortment of fillings, depending on what's in the fridge. Today, I've got some bacon crisping under the grill. A good dollop of chutney will give a sweet and fiery kick. Then a crisp, cool lettuce leaf. And finally, silky-smoked salmon adds a bit of luxury. That's it. My salmon, bacon and chutney sandwich. Yes, it is an unusual combination. Soft, silky salmon, hot, crisp bacon. But it works.
Let it snow and snow.